We welcome our viewers on YouTube to The Point of View. And tonight we're asking the question, is Ghana's economy over-liberalized? To address that, we have a case study and we have a report. The case study is that of a Chinese-owned bread manufacturing company here in Accra on the motorway. And for the report, we'll be looking at Ghana's Trade Vulnerability Report, which was released by the Statistical Service a couple of days ago. My guest, Robert Ahomka-Lindsay, former Deputy Trade Minister, Michaelo Yamson, who is Managing Partner at Yamson and Associates. Now, if you like the video, please subscribe to The Point of View's YouTube channel and also share with people who follow you so they can also enjoy. Welcome back. So tonight on The Point of View, we'll be asking the question, is Ghana's economy over-liberalized? My guest, Robert Ahomka-Lindsay, former Deputy Trade Minister, former GIPC boss. Indeed, it was after his tenure that the GIPC law that we're currently working with was promulgated. So that law was put out on the 26th of August 2013. So basically like a decade ago. Robert was the GIPC CEO under the President Kufuor administration, and then he became Deputy Minister of Trade under the Kufuor administration in the first term. Robert, good to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Good
Wonderful.
To be here.
Now, it's a pair. I'll be joined also soon by Michaelo Yamson, who is a former executive of Unilever and also the managing partner for Yamson and Associates. He will join us to talk about this. Now, one of the things we're talking about is the 2022 Trade Vulnerability Report with some very, very, very interesting highlights. Maybe let me start with those highlights. So, Ghana's total export value is 148 billion cedis, and that's about 4.5 billion higher. Sorry, our imports is 148 billion. That's about 4.5 billion higher than our exports. So we have, you can call it a merchandise trade deficit, okay? Number two, the number of countries Ghana imports from is 209, but the number of countries we export to is 161. So we are short around 50. We import from 50 more countries than we export to. So we have a deficit of about 50 countries when it comes to the balance of countries. Third major point, our three main export products are gold, mineral oils and mineral fuels and oil, and cocoa beans. If you put the three together, that's 80% of Ghana's exports. Gold, mostly exported raw. Mineral fuels and oils, mostly exported raw. Cocoa beans and some products. And then our imports, ironically, also are mineral fuels and oil, accounting for more than a quarter of our total import. So we export mineral fuels and oils and import the same thing. But we export it raw and we import it finished. We also import machinery and electrical equipment and then chemical products. Somebody posted on social media, and we've gone then to see, it's a huge edifice. The post suggested that they sell bread. We went on their social media platforms and we've seen that they advertise bread. In a call to an official of the organization later today, they said to me that they don't only do bread, but they'll be doing other sophisticated bakery products like croissant and things. But from what they market on their social media handles is bread. That's what I've seen. And they do not deny, at least from what I know, that it's a Chinese-owned company. I mean, okay, would you have allowed this as trade minister? That's where I should start from. I mean, a Chinese baking bread for Ghanaians to buy in Ghana? Is that what's happening?
I think, Bernard, anyway, good to be here. Good to be with the audience.
Yeah.
Before I answer that question, I want to ask a first question.
Okay.
Which is this. What do we want for investors to come to Ghana? Who do we want? What do we want to attract? What is it that we plan for ourselves to which we attract others? If that includes bread making, great. If it doesn't, no. But I think that's the problem. You see, I think part of the challenge we have is that we have not defined very clearly what we want and then reflected our laws, our regulation to that, because the Chinese know what they want. The Americans know what they want. The Asians know what they want.
Okay.
And when they don't get it, what do? They close the border. India has just said, no more rice export, because they know what they want. So if we, as Ghanaians, say that we want bread producers because we can't do it, great. But me sitting here, I do not believe we lack the capacity to manufacture all the input and make everything we need to consume bread in Ghana.
So should FDI only be for things you can't do for yourself?
FDI should be, you should try and attract FDI which meets what you want, which includes where you have gaps in your capacity. So for instance, take for sake of example, we have lots of cocoa beans, but we don't know how to process it. So let us go and attract FDI to come and set up processing in Ghana. For example.
So you can process competitively.
Exactly.
So that if you export, it's still solid.
So you're not asking for FDI for somebody to come and, you want FDI that adds value to what you already have, because you want to increase the total value of your export in cocoa paste.
So you can export
beans.
Raw cocoa, but also cocoa chocolate, which is of a certain high quality.
Exactly.
So that the revenue from cocoa is not just the beans.
Exactly.
So even though the company may not be from Ghana,
yes,
once you locate them here and they export the cocoa product, it's part of your portfolio as a country.
And you want them because you have a competitive edge in cocoa beans.
Okay.
That you cannot process because you haven't quite got everything you need to do it. So you attract the FDI to come in. An example, we have lots of aluminium. Let us attract FDI that will add value to that aluminium. Let's not export aluminium. We have gold. Let us attract FDI. You see, so FDI should be designed to meet what you want in your economy. Example, we believe we have a very strong offer of tourism. We have a challenge with our hotels. Too expensive. Not enough of the right quality. So let us attract FDI in those sectors. You see, that is how you design an FDI strategy.
From your premise, you don't see how bread can be...
I don't see that as an important category for us to go and attract FDI. No.
Particularly because the bread will be eaten here. So it's not even like something adding value to export.
It's not so much because it'll be eaten here. It's because at the end of the day, our objective of a Ghanaian government is to encourage Ghanaian businesses and to encourage the well-being of Ghanaians.
Yeah.
So in everything we do, we must find a way to add value to the Ghanaian.
I'll come back to that point. My other guest is Michaelo Yamson, who's joined us. It's funny, the last time we had this pair, Michael was here and you were home. And Michael is now home and you are here. I don't know whether it's deliberate. Michael, thank you. Is this like cat and mouse you are playing with me? Thank you for joining us. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Bernard. Happy to share the platform with you again, Robert.
Good to meet you,
Great
Michael.
pleasure.
I heard you were not well. I hope you're okay.
I had to take a bit of time, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to share some time with you.
Let's start with bread. I'm still confirming all the details, but from what I know, the company is on Spintex Road, motorway side. They said to me they don't only do bread, they will do other things. They said they'll do croissant, they will do cakes and beautiful things. But from what I saw on their social media platform, and we went there, I couldn't speak to anybody today, they do bread, right? They bake bread. Is it okay that a Chinese company is producing bread here?
So let me agree a little bit with Robert. I think if they were here with innovative technology to, for example, use cassava flour to bake bread, leveraging a product that is indigenous to us, that would be fantastic. If, as we all fear, they are importing their own wheat flour because we no longer have the money to support our flour importers, then it is problematic. If they are not going to buy from the domestic flour producers, it is problematic. I am inclined to think that this is going to exacerbate our problems, the problems that we've all been discussing this morning with our trade deficit, than it will help us. We have to be purposeful as a country. And this factory is only a symptom of a larger issue. Yes, we are trading with China, and China is trading with us. But again, are we very clear about how we want the trade with China to benefit us? And if we are not clear, then you will end up with a situation where essentially flour from China is turned into bread in Ghana for us to eat. And we will be feeding the Chinese economy and literally exporting our hard-earned dollars. We will be throwing away the opportunity to turn local products into flour to feed the bread industry and actually benefit the wider Ghanaian bakery industry. So I think we need to think hard and fast about the larger issues. The factory per se has only raised the issue, but it is not in of itself the problem. Its own business model in the end will determine whether it is a good corporate citizen and a help to the Ghanaian economy, whilst also boosting Ghana-China economic relations. We cannot have a situation where, essentially Chinese industry floods Ghana only to import into Ghana China's excess. So we have to be careful about this situation, but we must address the wider issue.
Okay.
That's my view.
Wonderful. Let me come back to Robert on this. I'm looking at the GIPC law, August 2013.
Yes.
This is, of course, it wasn't an MPP government that was in office.
It's President Mills.
Mills's government, but 27.1, activities reserved for Ghanaians and Ghanaian-owned enterprises. I see 10 things. I don't see bread. I sale of goods and provisions of services in the market, petty trading, hawking, selling of goods in a store. I see taxi or car hire, beauty salon, barber shop, printing of recharge cards, and use of subscribers of telecom services, exercise book, stationery, finished pharmaceutical product retail, production, supply, and retail of sachet water. And this is not even bottled, just sachet water.
Yes.
And all aspects of pool, betting business, and lotteries except football pool. So, was this, what, I don't know if you understand this law and why they limited it to these 10.
So, the law has a history. So, there was a previous law, and in fact, when I was the CEO of the GIPC in 2008, we'd actually prepared a new law. It had not gone to Parliament at that time. And if you go back to 2013, in fact, there was a forum held at the Accra International Conference Center to discuss this law. Okay. And I was invited to come and make some comments. And I was not happy with it. I was not happy with it because I felt that we are taking a very minimalistic view on this whole aspect of how we encourage Ghanaian businesses. I remember this very clearly because at that time it was before crude. And in fact, myself and Tony Oteng JC had been made by President Kufuor to be the co-chair of writing the new petroleum law. I still have that law in my laptop at that time. And it was finished in 2008. And we had put a very elaborate system in place to change this whole, it was all under the local content law, to move it away because we wanted to make sure that we didn't follow the similar experience of Nigeria, which was export crude and import finished products and all the ancillary challenges there were. So we had done that. So what 2013 law shows is basically what was already there, plus a few more that were added. So if you look at the law that was there beforehand, and the law that came through 2013, you'll find that the list had not changed.
So are you saying that in your personal view, this list have been longer?
It shouldn't have been the same. It needed you see, there are different ways of encouraging. You can encourage with the stick or with the carrot. Okay. So this is a stick. A stick says you cannot. This is reserved, you cannot do it. A carrot will say, if you do X, Y, and Z, we'll do Y. So let me give you an example. One of the areas we looked at, for instance, under petrochemicals, remember at that time, this was what was coming. We had a situation where we said, if you do Y, if you had more than 40% of your business owned by Ghanaians, you were able to qualify to do X, Y, and Z. So we had a situation where you had both the carrot, which was encourage Ghanaian ownership, and the stick, which said that if you didn't have at least, let's say, 40%, you couldn't supply food to the oil companies or to anybody else, including government. as an example. So we try to do that. So I think this is a law, to be honest with you, that is outlived its
outdated
years. No, it is. We just have to be honest about it.
Okay.
Because the world also, when in 2013, social media was not the way it was in terms of particularly the commerce side of social media.
Even the printing of recharge cards is no longer a business, because now you can buy anything you want by just doing star something.
This is it. I can sit here and buy Alibaba from here and
it will come to your house.
So
this needs to be changed. Let me take Harry. So your interesting thing, you are the managing partner of Yamson and Associates. The man for whom this organization is named was GIPC board chair around this period. Right, so if for nothing at all, this law was in your house because it was put together in August 2013, 10 years ago next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So what do you make of this? We reserved 8 or 9 areas for Ghanaians, and I mentioned the list. Do you agree with Robert when he says this thing needs a review and probably a different approach? It's outlived its usefulness in 2023.
Yeah, I think that essentially the world has changed since the law was drafted 10 years ago, and we need to let that reflect in any review that is done. Principally for me, and as I think Robert has signaled earlier, what we need to focus on in our trade policy is attracting investments that leverage our resources, for 3 reasons: that they will expand our domestic economy, not kill existing industry or existing businesses and take over the space without necessarily expanding the domestic industry. That's one. And that's why when I talked about the factory, I made the point that Ghana has the opportunity to produce flour domestically, but it requires investment. It requires R&D. So a foreign investor who comes here and helps us to do the R&D and the investments in technology that will expand our bread industry using local resources is welcome. That's my view. So it should not be a black and white situation. It must be more nuanced. The second thing is that it must grow jobs. So you look at Ghana today, and yes, we were experiencing to some extent jobless growth. And so again, we have to have the conversation and reflect it in the law that when you bring your investment, tell us also how it will expand jobs, formalize jobs, not informal jobs. The bread business that you talk about, you have people standing by the street, by the roadside selling bread. That is just expanding the informal workforce. It's not good for a Ghana that has invested in national ID cards, is hoping to bring everybody or more people, everybody into the tax net, is hoping to get more Ghanaians contributing towards social security so that our livelihoods after work life can be more secure. So if the business plan of the investor is only going to create petty trading, then it's not the kind of investment that Ghana should be happy to go in for. Look, it's true across so many industries. I don't even want to get into a list. But the third reason why we should invite investments that leverage our resources is to increase our exports. We always talk about that. But again, here we have a situation where we are importing all manner of equipment, for example, into our gold sector. And yet you hear that Ghana says it has exported X billion worth of gold. Never mind that only less than 10% of it actually comes to Ghana. But then Switzerland reports 3 times that from Ghana. So all those equipment that came into the country, because they came in legally, they did not appear here illegally. And yet all those supposed investments of machinery end up increasing our exports to no benefit of Ghana's. This tiny Ghana is now subsidizing the global gold trade in excess of $3 billion, $4 billion annually. How can that possibly be right? So whether it is this government or the previous government or whoever, when we superintend strategy that we don't execute, there is a problem.
Wonderful.
And that is the real conversation.
Okay, so
we've got it on paper. We're just not following through.
Let's dive into the report now. 2022 Trade Vulnerability Report. I picked the key highlights. We import 148 billion, 148.6 billion. We export 144 billion. So we have a deficit of 4.5 billion.
3%.
Yeah. That's the first point. Second point is that the countries we import from are 209. The country we export to are 161. So there's a deficit on both sides. Is this a problem? Let me start with Robert. Is this, when you look at this picture, is it enough to be concerned, or we need to go deeper?
I don't even need to go any further to be very concerned. Why? Is because when I look at the first point, which is the type of economy we have, what you're telling me is that 80% of what we export is raw material. Takes us back to the problem we've had since independence, or just after. Because at independence, we still had quite a strong manufacturing sector, a cocoa business, early on anyway, and only had 7 million people. Today, we're getting close to 40 million. What that tells me is that 80%, if we were a business, 80% of our business is based on the lowest input in the value chain of any business. That is 80% of our business.
Gold raw, minerals raw,
cocoa raw.
80%.
80%.
4 out of 5.
Yes. Of everything you do has no value added.
That's serious.
How do you compete?
And this is 2022.
This is 2022, but the same, if we did an analysis, I'm sure, over the past, let's say, 30 years, I suspect that we have actually, because the value of some of these have gone up, we've actually got worse as a percentage of total export.
Wow.
So without even doing anything else, what that tells you day one is that you have a fundamental structural challenge in trying, and that you need to address. But again, I want to stress, this is nothing new. It is a reality. The second point goes to, in terms of who we export to. It's good. There is a good point there. We are dealing with many countries, 100 plus people. That is good, because that tells you that already you have a let's call it a potential sales base, a market,
161
of
countries.
161. You already know each other. You are doing things together. It's not as if you have to go and knock on doors. And the good thing also is a lot of these countries are some of the strongest in the world. So it tells you that you already have relationship. If you're able to address the first one, or as part of a solution to join the issue with the first one, if you want to move away from a raw material dependent to more of a value added. The third area I want to bring, because it goes into the countries, but it's also a challenge, is how little of that is with Africa. Ghana trades less than 11% of everything we do with other African countries.
Yeah.
If I'm reading it correctly.
Yes. If you look on the chart we've put on the screen,
less than 11%.
Africa is the green box within the bigger box.
Exactly.
So yellow on your left is Europe, with Switzerland about half of that.
Yes.
In the middle is China, Asia, India. The red is North America. So it's actually, Europe is our number one export destination.
Yes.
China is number 2. Africa and North America share this. And even in Africa, I don't even see Nigeria that much. It's South Africa for gold, Burkina.
So here we have I would say a triple whammy. One, if you look at the rest of the world, on average, Europe, North America, Asia, they trade with each other about 65%. We are trading with each other less than 11%. That's the first whammy. Second whammy, what we are trading with each other is not value added. It is gold. By the way, it's interesting that South Africa is taking so much gold from us when they're the second largest producer of gold.
So what are they doing to our gold?
Good question. You should ask yourself that question. What is that? Just the same way the beans go to Switzerland and come back as chocolate. Ask yourself, what is happening to the gold? Why is South Africa, which is also a major gold producer,
buying our gold?
Buying our gold.
So gold, Switzerland 41% of our gold, South Africa 24.
Yes.
0.8, India 21, UAE 4.8. So you can say 3 countries, almost 90% of our gold.
Yes.
Switzerland, South Africa, India.
So why is I can understand Switzerland, I can understand Dubai, UAE.
But I don't understand South Africa.
Why is South Africa? That opens the question.
Because they produce gold as well.
Yes. So that tells you, I can guess what it is.
What is it?
They're adding value to the gold. They're processing the gold, which is what we are not doing.
So they produce raw gold, but they also buy our raw gold and add value to it, and they sell the finished product.
So if we did an analysis, I'm sure, of South Africa's value of import of gold and export of gold products, you see a very different basis. And then the third point, which I think is the third whammy where we based it, is that, but then the whammy I want to flip it. It also shows an opportunity. It shows an opportunity. It shows an opportunity because what it tells me is that there is actually income there. There is money. It's not as if this gold is being sold for free or the oil is being sold for free. It tells me there's an economy there you can build on.
Wow.
So
we'll reflect on these 3 points. This is the point of view. We are trying to make sense of Ghana's economy from a trade perspective. We are discussing the trade vulnerability report. Massive congrats to the Statistical Service for putting this together. Shout out to Professor Enim and his team. My guest, Robert Ahomka-Lindsay, former Deputy Minister of Trade, former GIPC boss, Michael Yamson, who's the managing partner of Yamson Associates, former Unilever executive as well. When we come back, we'll have his take on the highlights of the report. Stay with us. Welcome back. The point of view tonight is discussing Ghana's economy. Is it over-liberalized? We started off by talking about a Chinese-owned bread factory here in Accra. We're now looking at Ghana's Trade Vulnerability Report 2022. We had a trade deficit of about 4.5 billion. We imported more than we exported. We also have more countries to import from, 209, than countries we export to, 161. And 80% of our exports are gold, oil and cocoa, mostly raw. Those are the highlights. Michael, what are your thoughts about the key highlights of this report? How disappointed are you, or how alarming did you find these highlights?
For me, let me start with the rainbow. I think that we should see very clearly the opportunity that the AFTA promises for Ghana. Apart from Africa, North America is the only country, the only space, the only geographic area where Ghana recorded a trade surplus.
Yes.
And with the African countries, they were value-added products.
Yeah.
With North America, it was pretty much non-value-added products. So I think that AFTA is the answer for us. And Ghana needs to understand very early on how, first of all, we can bridge the deficit with trade in Africa, and then move on to actually expand into sustainable trade surpluses, trading with Africa. So that for me was the, if you like, the one big good thing. Other than that, I saw opportunities, and the opportunities for me were very clear. We have had an expanding and deepening conversation in Ghana about adding value to agricultural products. Without a doubt, the way the world is going, when you look at our own diaspora, you look at climate change, when you consider the fact that the world, the global consumers, palette is expanding. The fact that we ourselves just need to solve our own food security issues. The clear opportunity in here was that our opportunity for agro-processing is huge. Look at it and notice that apart from cocoa, every other agricultural export of Ghana fits in other products. And so very clearly, Ghana has, if you like, every reason to see a huge untapped opportunity in agro-processing. And we should not in any way belittle or joke with that opportunity. The Export Promotion Authority in Ghana should latch on to this and use it to justify huge attention for the non-traditional exporters that Ghana has. Now, the second thing for me was the obvious fact that we are not using tax policy as smartly as we could or should. First of all, to protect local industry, but also to try and attract the kinds of investments that we need to actually grow our own economy. So three things, therefore. AFTFCA, very big opportunity. Second area, agro-processing, because that is a huge, if you like, empty space in that report. And third, our tax policy. I think it's not only our GIPC law that we need to revisit, but we really need to think again about how we use tax policy to help the local industry and to try and attract the kinds of investments that we use. What we have done so far has disfavored, if you like, local industry. For example, we have just enticed vehicle assembly plants into Ghana, but we are reluctant to then go ahead and say we will restrict the importation of vehicles that are, for argument's sake, more than 5 or 10 years old. We used to have that law. A government came and shut it down. And now we are struggling to take that decision a decision that was once taken. We are now struggling to take that decision again. But why would you entice people to invest in vehicle assembly plants and then allow the importation of used vehicles? It doesn't compute. Would we rather not have these factories hit full capacity and double their capacity and triple their capacity? Even if all of us in Ghana are only driving 4 different kinds of vehicles, it would be better that they were all locally assembled than that one vehicle is imported, used into this country. It's inefficient. It adds to our environmental degradation. And there's no reason why we cannot commonsensically, in a bipartisan way, take that decision.
I want to just make up for it about the vehicle. This morning, when I went onto my website, I read something. A Vietnamese company, called EV, VinFast, has just gone in the stock market, and its value is greater than that of Ford and General Motors.
A Vietnamese car company.
A Vietnamese electric car company has just listed, and its value is greater than that of Ford and GM of the US.
This is Vietnam of Vietnam War.
This is Vietnam of Vietnam War, where since the war, somebody has done an EV. I've got the
Can you show it on the screen? Is that a yellow car?
Yes, I don't know where I have to.
No, we'll put it up.
The yellow car. Where you say, and it says this, shares Vietnamese electric vehicle, which is yet to make a profit.
Wow.
Okay. Went on the stock market at a value of $85 billion, which is higher than Ford's, which is $48 billion.
Wow.
And GM's, which is $46 billion. Now, what that tells me is what I'm hearing coming through here. Why we keep saying that? Why is it that we don't seem to be able to? Why are we not creating our VIN? Where is our company? Where is the Ghanaian company that we have supported? Because I can assure you this company, I know we're going to come onto that, was supported by the Vietnamese government.
Yeah.
Where is our company going on the stock market? The only one I remember was Ashanti Gold that got closed. It gave us some, but I don't know what has happened to that today. But this is a Vietnamese company this morning. 85 billion. Ford, 48 billion. GM is 46. You know how old Ford and GM have been around?
So the lesson there is what? Government support?
Government support, and it is possible to get it done. You see, sometimes I think we sit down, we think that this thing is like it's beyond us.
But some will say we're on the right path, because if you start with assembling cars,
then
you are moving to the next level.
That is why I'm saying that. But remember, these guys did not assemble.
They didn't do the assembly as we are. So they went straight to EV.
EV. This is pure
electronic
EV.
vehicle.
He has not made a profit. Compared to Elon Musk, he's only, let me give the number. So Elon Musk currently, Tesla, is currently manufacturing, where's the number? They gave him a number. Okay, Elon Musk currently delivers 890,000 vehicls. You know how much this VinFast delivered?
How many?
11,300.
So it's very small.
But what that tells you, and it goes to one of the things we were talking about earlier, which is the technology, the new world we live in, where we're talking about the investment code. We live in a fundamentally different world. Where is the EV companies? Where are the EV companies in Ghana?
That's the question. Let me come back to something else. When I look at the top 5 import commodities for Ghana, I'm seeing diesel, automotive gas oil. I'm seeing light oils and motor spirit and super. So basically the finished product of our second largest export.
We export crude and then we import finished product. Now where is the economic sense in that?
Isn't that a refinery? I mean, the whole of Africa, if you look at the global refinery map, Africa has less than 10% of, in fact, less than 5% of global refineries. Dangote just had one.
Yes.
Is refinery such a difficult thing to do?
No, it's not.
So why aren't we able to refine our crude?
It is all about the will, the focus, and the determination to do it. You know how long it took Dangote to build that refinery? And how many billions he had to pump into?
He's been working his whole life for this moment.
In 2008, remember I was telling you about the petrochemical law. The law had stated this, and I don't think this is any secret, so I'm going to share it. President Kufuor agreed to merge 3 entities. TOR, Ghana Oil, and GMPC.
He wanted to merge all 3.
All 3 of them.
TOR, GMPC, and GOIL.
Yes.
Into one big company.
We were looking at Statoil.
Petrobras.
BP.
Or Petrono.
Yes. Or the ones in Malaysia.
Yeah.
We wanted to create our own giant. This was before crude. Remember, this was 5-6 years before crude arrived. With the viewpoint is that we would then regenerate TOR. We even had a clause in that law, and the national security clause that stated that a certain, at that time, if you remember in 2000, I don't know if you remember, in 2008, Ghana was under the foot because we had issues, we needed 60,000 barrels of crude a day. We weren't getting. You remember there were issues with the gas line, our brothers were issues. And we had put a clause in that law that stated the first 60,000 barrels would have to be sold to that entity. So that TOR, knowing that 3-4 years down the road, it will get the crude, could then start investing, start attracting the right kind of either partnership or the right kind of entity, so that by the time crude came, we would not be in the situation where we had today, where we're exporting crude, the same problem.
I want to show viewers this. So if you see the screen, black is oil, yellow is gold. On the left side is export, the right side is import. So 44% of your export in terms of trade per commodity type is mineral fuel oil, raw form. And then you import almost 40% of that. Right? Then the blue on the right is machinery and electrical equipment, granted. Chemical products, green. Red is vehicle and automotive parts. So your point is that you could have reduced this black.
You're exporting. First of all, this should be less.
Yeah.
So that we actually move this to here.
Okay. So you don't import the finished product?
No,
because you
we're
produce the
making
finished
it.
product.
So we should export more. We should move what is here being exported.
Should be done here.
Should be there.
And then you save that money because your largest import is that.
Exactly.
I think we spend $2 billion importing.
This is the point.
A year of dollars.
Chemicals. You know where the chemical products is from? The green.
What's that?
The source of that is alkaline salt.
Really?
How much salt do we have?
We are not trying to develop it.
Exactly. Same sort of principle. Same sort of principle. So we need to move some of that green there.
Michael, what is your top 3 for us if we were to add value? Some people say cars are a bit high up there. Oil refineries are very expensive to build. So if I were to ask you which of the things we produce raw would you think we should add value to immediately in the best way possible? What would you say?
Well, for me, I think that the immediate shift should be, first of all, gold, cocoa, and then agricultural products, the other agricultural products. Look, a gold refinery is not the most expensive thing to put up, and it can be done. Processing our cocoa domestically is not the most difficult thing to do. It can be done. And simply saying that we will not export raw produce, raw agricultural products any longer is not an impossibility. The markets out there are looking for these products. We have the raw material, so let the investment come. So for me, the easiest 3, gold, cocoa, and our agricultural products. But I have to say that there is a lot of logic in encouraging oil refineries domestically. We have Tor already. There are refineries now popping up along our coast. I think that it is a sector that we must pay attention to, not only because of economic security, but remember, all the landlocked countries north of us suddenly have an option. So I talked about the Africa Free Trade Agreement, and I think that is what we must look at. Look, there is a need for gold in Egypt. There is a need for gold in Ethiopia. There is need for gold in Kenya, in South Africa, in Angola, in Senegal. These are all in Morocco. These are all Africa markets for gold. Switzerland, Dubai, whatever, agreed. But within the Africa zone, there's already about 6-7 markets that you can do a lot of business with, and that will be happy to take gold from Ghana. It's closer. The quality is good. People go to India to buy gold. Some people took gold to India to be repaired, and they were told, but your Ghana gold is better quality. Why do you want to buy gold from India? So we need to think hard about AfCFTA. It's no joke. Now, when you come to cocoa, yes, we hardly consume value-added cocoa products relative to what we export. But the world needs the value-added intermediate products that come out of cocoa. And look, why should it be that Ghana allows Europe to write a law that says that we cannot export to them some value-added products when it comes to cocoa? And we have the raw material. It's unconscionable. But we put our signature to such agreements that include an acceptance that they can write such law and we will abide by it. So I think that redirecting our trade, today other countries have developed a taste for cocoa. So if Europe will play those games, then by all means find an alternate market. But mind you, we've sat around and now China is becoming a player. So I'm not sure where cocoa takes us in the long term. And sometimes we also have to ask ourselves that, look, when it comes to our future, as far as a trading country is concerned, do we still want to be if you like, tied to cocoa? Cocoa may be good today, but just like the people in the Middle East are planning for a world without oil, maybe we too should be thinking about a world where cocoa is 1% of GDP and is still a $50 billion business. So it's not the end to say that it will not have primacy. As long as it continues to be a growing sector, it doesn't matter if other things become bigger. So that's my answer. Gold, cocoa, agricultural products, but Africa, Africa, Africa.
This is still the point of view. We're looking at Ghana's trade position. My guests, Ahomka-Lindsay and Michael Yamson. When we come back, we have just two questions to address. So, are we concluding that Ghana's economy is over-liberalized? And also, what should government do, or what role should government play in addressing this challenge? We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Point of view tonight is asking, is Ghana's economy over-liberalized, and what can government do to address the situation? Guest Ahomka-Lindsay here in studio, and Michael Yamson, who's joining us via video link. So, Robert, we have just a few minutes to go.
Yes.
I guess the question I asked at the beginning of the show has been directly answered. You agree the economy is over-liberalized?
I think the challenge we have is, I wouldn't say over, maybe because maybe at heart I'm a market person. What I would say is that we have the wrong priorities.
You can't say you are liberalized because you are a product of the neoliberal system.
I'm afraid I have a difficulty.
No, but that's the fact. Robert, is it okay? Michael, is it? I mean, I had Yamson last 2 weeks talk about the neoliberal paradigm not helping us, and he used to work at Unilever as the vice president for Africa. So if he's been able to say this.
You see, I think part of it.
I mean, if Yamson admits that the neoliberal system is not working.
But we're the same thing, Coca-Cola.
That's my point.
You see, I think that the challenge we have is that it is the system, it is a system that has led to the greatest growth. The question is the misapplication of it leads to you suffering.
But China didn't apply a neoliberal model.
No, but what China did.
They did state-led capitalism.
No. China used the model, closed theirs, and took advantage of yours.
Yeah, but that's my point. So, but what the neoliberals told us was that the state should get out and allow the private engine to drive growth, which is not true.
So what the neoliberals said is the state should allow the market to grow.
But the market
regulations.
The market will not grow you independently without state support.
That one does not.
Michael, you agree with this?
No, that one I don't think.
There's no way the market.
That one I'd agree 100%.
So maybe let me butt in here.
Yeah.
For me, there is a system that keeps us out of the markets that we need to thrive. Whether it is the Chinese system that shuts you out but takes advantage of you, or the Western model that brings you their businesses and their products but says that I'll use every other non-tariff means to keep you out. At the end of the day, they are shutting us out of the markets. Thankfully, Africa is waking up. And Africa is waking up with the right idea that let us open up ourselves to each other. So I think that those arguments are going to become increasingly, old hat. We have the resources. What we lack is the industry. And to have the industry, we must focus diligently on executing our trade and our industrialization strategies. So I think that let China be and let the West be. They have actualized. They have gotten to where they want to get to. We have a journey to plan. And we know where we are starting from. We just need to forget about everything else and focus on what we have to do. What is killing us? We politicize every conversation. So I won't get, So nothing is followed through to its logical conclusion. The Americans got together, you were saying it this morning, and they said, we won't let you thrive in America if you don't share our values. The Indians said, we won't export rice because we have to look after our people first. What are our priorities? So we need to take a look and understand this is where we are today. Even if we look at just the ECOWAS region, we are $4.5 billion short. Next year, how can we do $10 billion of trade just within West Africa and WEMU? It's possible. But like we used to say when we were young managers, chewable chunks. Take strategy in chewable chunks. Sometimes we bite more than we can chew, and oftentimes, even when the food is in our mouth, we refuse to chew. So I think that Ghana needs discipline. Ghana needs to choose its markets. Ghana needs to industrialize based on the products the raw materials we produce here, which have global demand. And third, we should just be diligent about executing national strategy, Robert, and not politicize all the discussions.
Let me end with Robert on the government role and the way forward. So give me like a couple of minutes to just highlight for me what we should do seriously as a country.
I think the first thing government needs to do is listen and reflect its policies based on what its citizens want. Okay. Now that seems a very simple statement, but it is actually very difficult. Okay. So if we don't want bread manufacturers, let us state it. Okay. If our focus is to expand our export into West Africa, let's stop the trips to New York, to Tokyo, to Brazil. I'm sorry, these are the ramifications of it.
Let's emphasize where we want to do business with.
If our focus is to make sure that we make AFCFTA, by the way, I agree with that, don't get me wrong, the core, then we must ask ourselves, why is AFCFTA not going quicker? Because it's not. It is not. Why? Because we must also realize we live in a world of competition. This is where government will help us, to your point. Those that we are trying to move away from, somebody is already selling to Kenya and to Nigeria and to Egypt and to South Africa, and we are telling them, no, we want to sell to them.
Buy from us.
They're not going to sit there and just let you go walk there freely and just we must understand this is where governments become very important. We must put our money where our mouth is, and I am 100% for the fact today that banks should be given minimum level of their balance sheet should be SMEs, or they don't get universal license.
Wow. That drastic?
No, because otherwise we are going to repeat the same problems that we've had. Why has India done it? You asked the question about China and the rest of it. There, the capital is used to help their businesses expand and export. When a Chinese company comes here, ask yourself what cost of funding he's doing.
Very low.
Okay, we must be able to proactively have policies that encourages what we want. So, for example, if we want agro-processing, by the way, I agree with the point that cocoa may not always be the geese that lays the golden egg. I actually think oil palm has a greater potential than cocoa. Then we should state that ADB, 80% of your lending must be to agriculture. And that agriculture, we are going to get Gersel to take advantage of that. And if you don't, you lose your license.
Wow, we must be that drastic.
Listen, Bernard, how long have we been talking
about this? I see him nodding. You think we should be tough with the banks on this?
No, I'm sorry.
Your money must, because it starts with money. 100%.
President Obasanjo said something which I thought was very nice. A few years ago, he said, when people used to come to him, sorry, Michael, you say, oh, there is hope, there is this potential, there's this. He said, my friend, I can't eat hope and potential. Give me the business.
Wow.
You can't, we've been eating hope and potential since I can remember, since 57. I'm tired of eating air. I want to have something.
So let's be drastic. Let's compel. Of course, that means we have to borrow less from the banks ourselves as government.
That is the discipline that comes with it.
If the bank is doing, if the government is the number one place that people lend to in terms of T-bills, then of course you have the problem, right? So the government itself must set the example.
We must be the example. We must set the discipline, which says, you remember at the beginning of, I remember 2017, sorry, Mike. One of the things that the Minister of Finance did is that he removed all the money that was sitting in all the different banks and put it in the central bank. Do you remember? And what impact that had? It started forcing the banks to actually start looking for your deposits.
I'm also being forced to end because
Sorry.
my time is up. Fascinating conversation. I like this pair, Michael Yamson, managing partner is Yamson and Associates, former Unilever executive, Robert Ahomka-Lindsay, who's former Deputy Minister of Trade, former GIPC boss, and former Coca-Cola executive. So Coca-Cola and Unilever on the same program. Thanks for watching. My name is Bernard Able. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.